Are you thinking about setting up a Unifi network but you're not sure where to start? Terms such as dream machines, cloud keys, access points can all sound a bit confusing. Or perhaps you already have a Unifi network and you'd like to implement some additional functionality such as a guest network with limited bandwidth or perhaps a kids-friendly Wi-Fi network with parental controls. If you answered yes to any one of these scenarios, stay tuned. In this video, I show you my new and updated Complete Unifi Setup. Hi guys, welcome to Joshua's Tech Tips. So Ubiquiti's Unifi series has been a very popular choice for a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, as well as regular home users who are looking for a great network and Wi-Fi experience. The main reason for this is Ubiquiti's ability to provide professional grade performance at a fraction of the cost of some of its competitors. So to truly benefit from the complete Unifi experience, it's recommended to be invested in their ecosystem, meaning that all of your network equipment needs to be in the Unifi range of products. Don't get me wrong, you could still start off by just using a handful or one piece of the equipment, but to truly benefit from that single pane of glass in terms of management, it's much easier if you invest in one of their full stack solutions. In the past, this meant that you needed to have Unifi switches, firewalls, access points, cloud keys, etc. However, nowadays Ubiquiti has been evolving their product lines where they have been using more all-in-one solutions. An example of this is the UDM Pro and the Pro SE. So what these devices do is basically they consolidate the services of a few devices into one appliance. So the UDM Pro basically replaces a firewall, a switch, and a cloud key as it provides all these services in one device. However, in this video, I'll be using some of the older, more traditional equipment. So I'll be using an 8-port PoE switch, a USG firewall, an AC Pro access point, as well as a Cloud Key Gen 1. In an up-and-coming video, I'm going to show you how to do the setup if you're using a Dream Machine Pro or a Dream Machine Pro SE. So if that's something you're interested in seeing, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell to be notified once that video drops. As I previously mentioned, if you already have a unified system in place, I'm also going to show you how you can add some additional enhancements to your network. This will include, I'm going to show you how you can add an IoT network. So IoT network is basically made for like your Internet of Things devices. So this would include like sensors, your Amazon Alexa, your assistants, your Wi-Fi cameras, things that you don't necessarily want to access your internal network, but you like them to access the internet. I'm going to show you how you could segment your network and make that possible as well. I'm also going to show you how you could set up a guest network. So sometimes you have family and friends come over, you don't necessarily want to give them your main Wi-Fi network. This guest network is perfect for that. Also, I'm going to show you how to assign unlimited bandwidth to that network. So that way they don't necessarily hog all of your bandwidth from your main network. You limit them to a specific amount of bandwidth. And last but not least, I'm going to show you how to set up a kids-friendly Wi-Fi network. So parents, I know you're going to tag me for this. So this basically would add some additional parental controls to a Wi-Fi network. You know, make sure it's free from adult content such as pornography and stuff like that. And I'm also going to show you how to set up like schedules where your kids could only access your the Wi-Fi for a certain period of time if you want. Alright, so there's a lot of grounds to be covered in this video. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this is the actual equipment that I'll be using in my demo. So first I have my modem that's provided by my ISP. That's how I get my internet. Next I have my Ubiquiti firewall, my USG. And I have a 8-port PoE switch I'm using, and I have my AC Pro wireless access point, and last but not least I have my cloud controller Gen 1. I'll be using this to manage the entire setup. So basically, I get my internet from my modem. It comes out of my modem and it connects to port 1, the WAN 1 in my USG. From my USG on the LAN port, LAN 1 port, this uplinks to port 1 on my switch. Right, on port 2 of my switch, here I have my laptop connected. This is what I'll be using for the configuration. It's connected to port 2. And on port 3, the red cable, I have my wireless access point connected to that port. And on port 8, I have the cloud key connected. All of the devices have a white LED because they have been factory reset. However, once they have been adopted, this would change to blue. So this is actually a little diagram I did just to kind of further clarify my setup. So I have my modem that connects out to the internet, right? From my modem, I have an Ethernet connection going to the WAN port of my USG, right? From the USG, the LAN port in the USG, that goes out to my 8-port PoE switch to port 1. Right, on port 2 of the PoE switch, I have my laptop connected to that. And on port 3 of the switch, I have my access point connected to that. And last but not least, I have my cloud key connected to port 8. So first of all, I want you to launch Google Chrome. And yes, it needs to be Google Chrome. You'll see why later on this video. And in the address bar, I want you to type in account.ui.com/login. We're actually going to this page to create our Unifi remote access account. So once you land on the page, click create one at the bottom of the page if you don't have our account. If you have our account already, you could skip this step. Right, next, open up a new tab. And I want you to search for Ubiquiti Discovery Tool. Once you find the tool, go ahead and install it. However, I already have it installed on my browser, so I'm just going to click on the Launch app. Once you launch it, click on the Unifi Family button. And this actually helps us find our Unifi devices on our network. So you could see my access point, my gateway, as well as my switches there. It also shows us the status of pending for all the 3 devices. So next I want to find my cloud key. Click on Find Cloud Key and this would bring up the cloud key. So the cloud key is what we use to actually manage our network and devices. So to launch a cloud key, click on the IP address. If you get an error message, that's okay. Click on Advanced and select Proceed. So here you are prompted with 2 options. You have the ability to manage your devices with the cloud key or to also configure the cloud key. So initially click the Config button. Your default username and password would be UBNT, all lowercase. Select Login. On the first login, you'll be prompted to change your password. Go ahead and do so. So on this main page, you'll see a status of the device, such as the name, the uptime, the version, as well as the available resources. Click on the configuration page. Here you could change the device name as well as your time zone, and you'll also see the IP address information for your device. Now go to the maintenance tab and I want you to scroll all the way down. You'd see the option to upgrade the firmware as well as the Unifi version. So go ahead and select check for upgrades for the version. It says that we're currently up to date. As well as for the Unifi version, go ahead and check for updates. Here we can see that a new update is available. So I'm just going to select update now and confirm. And give it a few minutes for the update to be completed. Now that the update has been successfully completed, click on the cloud key icon on the top left hand corner of the screen. This will take us back to the original page that we were first greeted with. Select the Manage option to get started setting up our UniFi network. This launches the Setup wizard. So the first thing we need to do is give our network a name. This could be anything that you want. For this demo, I'm just going to name it Demo UniFi Network. Select the checkbox to agree to the end user agreement. Here we have the option to restore from a backup if we had that. So select Next. Here you need to enter your credentials for the UniFi remote access account that you created earlier. So that would be the username and password that you created here. So go ahead and do so. And select Next once completed. Auto backup is enabled by default. I'm going to leave this way. This screen now shows us a list of UniFi devices that has been found on our network. So here we have the option of selecting which particular device we want to add to this network. However, in this demo, we want all devices to be added to our network. So to do that, I'm just going to select the checkbox on the top, which will highlight all the devices. We're now prompted to enter a Wi-Fi name. So this can be changed after the setup. So it really doesn't matter what you enter here. So for this demo, I'm just going to enter test as my Wi-Fi name. Feel free to enter whatever you want. And just remember, as I said, you could always change this after the initial setup is complete. Also, you need to enter a Wi-Fi password. And we have the option to combine both 2 GHz and 5 GHz networks with one name. So I want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and enable that. This screen actually gives us an overview of our network configuration. So you can just double check it to ensure everything is as it should be. Right, I'm just going to change my country to Trinidad and Tobago and select finish and just give it a few minutes now to complete the network configuration. And configuration has been completed and we have automatically been logged into our UniFi site. So we're actually accessing this locally over our cloud key. So what I want to do is I want to access this remotely through our UniFi portal. Right, that's one of the benefits of having UniFi system is where you could remotely manage this anywhere in the world. So to do so, I'm going to actually close off this tab and I'm going to go back to our UniFi account portal and I'm going to hit sign in, enter my credentials obviously and sign in and give it a few seconds and we should be logged into our account. So yeah, we are logged into account. So if you're not seeing our devices here, we click on view legacy platform because as I said, the cloud key is considered a legacy device now. So we just want to select that there. Right, and here we have access to our various sites. So this is another site I did. So my current site is the Demo UniFi Network. That's the one that we just created. So I'm just going to select launch. And we've now been logged into our UniFi site. So this basically gives us our main dashboard here. As we can see, we have some statistics, some of the applications that we're currently running on our network. We can see that there. Right, so I'm going to head over to the UniFi devices tab. And here basically we could see that all our devices have been successfully added to the network. That would be our PoE switch, our access points, as well as our firewall. Those 3 devices have been added. Next, I'm going to select the settings option. And here we could see a list of our current Wi-Fi SSIDs. Right, so this one was created during the installation process, right? The setup wizard, we created this test Wi-Fi SSIDs. So the SSIDs is basically, the signals that you would see when you're browsing to connect to a Wi-Fi network. So as I said, we want to create 3 additional Wi-Fi SSIDs, one for IoT, one for guests, and one for kids, right? But we need to actually link these Wi-Fi SSIDs to networks, right? So we need to actually create the 3 networks first before we create the wireless aspect. So to do that, I'm going to go to the Networks tab, and here we have the default network that we created during the installation wizard. So I'm just going to select this, right? And here we could see we have options to change the name. I'm just going to uncheck the auto scale network option, right? I know this was a new feature added by Ubiquiti. I'm really not sure what it does, so to be safe, I like to uncheck it, right? And here we see a listing of our gateway, our IP range, our subnet mask, etc. I'm going to change the advanced configuration from auto to manual, and we're going to leave the network type as standard. And here we have the options to enable IGMP snooping, right? That's not really needed in my opinion for this network, so I'm going to leave that disabled. However, the multicast DNS, this is needed if you're going to be using devices such as Chromecast or those type of devices. So I'm going to leave this enabled since this is used in my network, and I'm sure in a lot of your networks as well. Under the DHCP settings, I'm going to change the starting IP address to 50 since I like to reserve the few couple of addresses to assign for things like servers, printers, and other devices on my network. Right, but that still provides us with a lot of usable IP addresses for this network. So I think more or less good to go. I'm going to hit on apply changes. All right, and changes have been successfully saved. So next I'm going to select the create new network option. So the first network I'm going to create is our IoT network. So I'm going to name that IoT. I'm going to uncheck the auto scale network option and change advanced configuration to manual. Next, we want to change network type from standard to guest. As the description says, devices which are connected to the guest network would basically be isolated from the rest of our internal network. And this is ideally what we want for IoT network. We want the devices to be able to connect to the internet, however, to limit or restrict their access to our internal network. So besides selecting the guest network option, you could also manually go and create the necessary firewall rules to create a guest or IoT network. However, because I'm trying to keep this video as simple as possible, by selecting the guest network option, this does all that for us. So this automatically creates the necessary firewall rules to segregate and isolate the guest and IoT networks. So we're going to leave the multicast DNS option enabled. And I think more or less that's it for this IoT network. I'm going to leave the DHCP range as it is, and I'm just going to select add network. And we can see that the IoT network was successfully created. So next up, I'm going to create another network, and this is actually going to be our guest network. But before I do that, I want to create a bandwidth profile. So I'm going to go to profiles, and I'm going to go down to bandwidth profile and create a new bandwidth profile. So here I'm just going to select a name of guest, the default name as guest, right? You can name it whatever you want. And this basically allows us to limit the bandwidth for our guests. So people, family and friends, they come over and you just want to limit that bandwidth that they can use. So they're not really sucking all your bandwidth from your network. You could go ahead and assign whatever bandwidth you want for them in this profile. So for my example, I'm just going to select 30 up and 30 down. You could feel free to do whatever relevant for you. So I'm going to apply changes, and that bandwidth profile was successfully created. We can see it's created here as a guest bandwidth profile. So now I'm going to actually head back over to networks, and I'm going to create a new network. I'm going to name this one guest. I'm going to uncheck auto scale. I'm going to manually turn on the advanced configuration, and I'm going to leave multicast DNS enabled, right? And for this network type, again, because it is a guest network, I don't want them necessarily being able to access my main network. I just want them to access the internet. So I'm going to turn on guest network as a network type. And I think I'm pretty much done with this network. So I'm just going to select add network. So last but not least, let's create our kids network, our kid-friendly Wi-Fi network. So I'm going to select create new network. I'm going to name this network kids. I'm going to uncheck auto scale, and I want to select manual for advanced configuration. So we want to head over to the DHCP settings, particularly the DHCP service management options, and we want to select show options. And under here you would see DHCP DNS servers. So I want to enable this. So this is what will actually provide the filtering, to block adult content by changing the DNS servers. So a good company that offers a free DNS server solution is OpenDNS. And this is a company run by Cisco, right? So we want to open a new tab and search for OpenDNS. And we're going to select the first option, and on the website we're going to select consumer. They have a range of different options. I'm just going to select the first one. This is pre-configured for us, takes all the guesswork out. Going to select setup guide, and what we're going to do is copy these DNS addresses and input it into our UniFi network, right? So this basically would do all the blocking and content filtering for us. So I'm going to paste that there and copy and paste the other one. So this would basically block like pornography, violence, all those different things on our kids network. Right, so I think that's more or less it. I'm going to click add network. Yeah, add network. So there we have it. We have our networks have now been created. Our 4 networks. We have our default, guest, and IoT. So now what we actually need to do is link these networks to our SSIDs, or our Wi-Fi signals, as some of you may refer to it. So to do that, we're going over to the Wi-Fi tab, and we need to create the additional Wi-Fi networks, right? So I'm going to select create new Wi-Fi network, and the first network I'm going to create is IoT. So here we need to enter a password. So anyone joining the network will need to, or connected to the Wi-Fi, will need to enter this password. On the network, it's currently set to default. I want to change this now to IoT. So basically this is our IoT network that we just configured. This is what actually ties the Wi-Fi part of it to the network policies that we just created earlier. So once I select that, here you could select which APs or access points you want this wireless signal or SSID on. We only have one, so we leave that as is. And I'm going to select manual, and this gives us the option to change our Wi-Fi bands. So a lot of IoT devices in my experience don't work properly or don't support 5 gigahertz. So I'm just going to uncheck 5 gigahertz and leave 2.4 gigahertz, since most if not all IoT devices work on the 2.4 gigahertz. Just to take the confusion out of it, we're just going to enable 2.4 gigahertz alone for this IoT network, right? Once we've done that, I'm basically gonna leave the Wi-Fi type as it is. There's no changes to be made there, and everything else more or less would be, the security settings, we need to change that to WPA2. This would ensure that all our traffic is encrypted in case there was anyone trying to sniff or hack our network. So I'm going to change it from open and select WPA2. All right, so basically that's it for this Wi-Fi network. So I'm just going to select add Wi-Fi network. Right, and there we could see the IoT Wi-Fi network was created. Next, I'm going to create another Wi-Fi network. So here we're going to create our guest Wi-Fi networks and go ahead and create a password for it. So remember, this is a network. When family and friends come over, you probably want to give them the password for this network. And we're going to change the network to guests, and this would link it to the previous network that created. Going to leave it to broadcast on all APs. I'm going to change advanced configuration to manual. And what I want to do here is essentially select the bandwidth profile. Remember, we created a bandwidth profile of 30 megabits per second up and down. So I'm going to select that and enforce that on this network. So once this is informed, anyone connected to the guest network would essentially only be able to get 30 megabits per second. It would not be able to, hog our bandwidth, in other words. And I'm going to select the security profile as WPA2, and I'm going to add Wi-Fi network. All right, so we're almost through. So last but not least, we need to create our kids friendly Wi-Fi network. So I am going to name this kids, just to keep it simple. Go ahead and create a password for it. For network type, I'm going to select our kids network that we created earlier. And I'm going to select manual for advanced configuration, since I need to enable the Wi-Fi scheduler. You'll see what that is in a moment. Right, so down to security, it's automatically select the WPA2. So I'm going to select Wi-Fi scheduler. So this is particularly useful like for kids or even employees if you're using it in a work environment and you want to limit the Wi-Fi access. You only want the Wi-Fi to be available for a certain period of time. This is a great tool that could help you accomplish that. Right, so as you can see, we have a calendar here, so you more or less could set the dates and times that you want your in this scenario kids to be able to access the Wi-Fi. So you just select a day in particular, any day, and you give it a name. I'm going to name it kids Wi-Fi access. You could choose the start and end day from here. Right, I'm just going to leave it from Monday to Monday, and you select the start time. So this is the actual time you want them to be able to access the internet from, the Wi-Fi from, sorry. And you go down ending time. I'm going to leave it at 6 p.m. And here you could actually change what days you want them to be able, the schedule to take place. So you could set it for every day, you could set it for certain days. I think I'm just going to leave it for during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm going to select those days and I'll give them a break for the weekend, right? So I'm going to save that. And if you look at the calendar now, here you'll see Kid Wi-Fi access, the profile name, and you'll see the date and time that they have access to the Wi-Fi. Alright, so I think that is more or less it in terms of setting up our networks, our Wi-Fi SSIDs, getting all those policies in there. So one more thing I just want to show you really quick before we end is I want to show you how you could actually assign one of the switch ports to these policies. So to do that, we go to the Unify Devices tab. I actually like to change my device view to the other view, so I'm going to do that. So here we could see our switch, right? So if we select our switch and we go to the ports option, we'd see a view of all the different ports, right? So say if you physically had a device, that you only wanted to access one particular network, you can make that changes inside here, right? You could do that by simply selecting a port, right? So by default, the port profile is set to all, so they will basically have access to everything, right? So what you want to do is to manually choose which network you want to give them access to. So say one of your kids' computers, desktops, is physically attached to that port. You could probably select kids from the option there. So that way their desktop computer would only get kids friendly content through that network port, or any other network that you like to manually assign to a physical port, right? So I just wanted to throw that in there quickly, because beside Wi-Fi, you could manually assign these networks that we've created to physical computers and devices as well. So let's actually do some testing now and see if we are getting the expected results. So I'm on my phone right now, and I'm gonna connect first of all to the test network, right? This is our default network that had access to all our bandwidth, etc. So I'm going to run a speed test, and currently I get 140 to 150 down and up with my ISP. So let me see the results I'm getting here. So yeah, I'm getting close to that 140 megabits per second bandwidth. Yeah, so it looks like all is well on the default test network that we set up. So next I'm gonna go over to test one of the other networks. So we're gonna come off the test and we're gonna try testing our guest network. So remember, the guest only has a maximum of 30 megabits per second assigned to it, so we should get somewhere close in that vicinity. And yeah, so we see we're getting about 28 megabits per second, so that sounds about right for our guest network. So last but not least, I want to test our kids friendly Wi-Fi network. So the test we're going to use is actually web filtering. So this doesn't really have bandwidth restrictions, but we put that web filtering option inside there, to block any kind of adult content from them. So I'm just gonna do a random search. Let's search for the word porn, see what happens. So we're getting some listings there for this word porn, right? So I'm going to select one of the websites, and automatically I get a security warning. If I select continue, there we go, the site is blocked. It shows you that they're doing content filtering. Cisco umbrella, I told you Cisco blocks owns OpenDNS. So this is it's working as expected. So let's try another site. Continue, and there you go, it's been blocked again from our content filtering solution. And let's try one more, and yep, it's working as expected. So yeah, content filtering is working, so all of our networks are working as expected. It's a bit difficult for me to test the IoT network for you, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. So guys, that brings me to the end of this video. So I'm actually going to be dropping a few more Unifi videos coming soon. So if you're interested in seeing more Ubiquiti content, more networking, and more technology related content, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the notification bell to be notified once a new video is released. As always, thanks for viewing. See you soon.